about in the paper also was expanding the scope of the civil affairs qualification course to include more interagency schooling, sending people to DC to take part in some state of art courses or other agency courses just to get them exposure to the way the rest of the foreign policy apparatus thinks and writes and communicates. We believe that's just a huge lack of our training and education. Insofar as, exactly like James was talking about, the elements of smart power, you've got to be able to think in terms of economics and politics and culture. Is that really what we're getting out of the CAQC currently?
Anything else about training or personnel that you would recommend changing?
This is James. I think it's quintessential for the regiment on the joint level to establish common framework for assessments, and it needs to be utilized across the complete spectrum of operations. And we also need to realize that civil affairs aren't the sole gatherer of civil information. So I think as we are in this age of lethality, we can still come up with like a 3 questions or at least pertinent information that can be taken in during a major combat operations, and then have a framework that is more civil affairs focused across the entire spectrum of operations, as well as utilize surveys and other forms of data gathering to be able to really fill these metrics and have a baseline assessment to know when, where, and how adversaries are engaging with the human domain, and then also knowing what areas that are vulnerable in which with populations that are associated or reside within key terrestrial domain, whether that be narrow seas or strategic resources or anything along the likes that are of our national interest. So I think that's really paramount in establishing that.
In the paper, we bring up 2 or 3 different systems that would analyze instability versus stability in a local area. And it's just basically a questionnaire that civil affairs could use, or even conventional forces if they were in an area long enough. And what that would do is quantitatively describe the local situation and provide the same metric for every rotation going through that area. So another key component is that civil affairs teams rotate through the same geographic area, the same local area, and they don't talk with a common language even amongst the teams that are rotating in and out. Whereas with a couple of these metrics, we could measure something, the next team could continue to measure the exact same way, and you could see which way stability or instability was trending and communicate that upward.
Establishing a baseline and measuring something is paramount, as you say, to knowing whether you're making any progress in which way you're heading, positive or negative.